this quarterback class got hyped up a little bit. We always knew Trevor Lawrence was there. Coming into the year, we knew Justin Fields was there. It was those two, and all of a sudden Zach Wilson shows up and Mac Jones shows up, and we knew Trey Lance was in there, right?
Yeah.
Quarterback class. There's no consensus number one yet, but in recent years we've seen Joe Burrow, we've seen Kyler Murray, or is there a consensus number one?
I think Spencer Rattler. I'd be hard-pressed to find a board or someone who doesn't have the opinion that Rattler's number one right now. But I think he's the only one. So on the PFF board, if we think a guy's a franchise-type quarterback that's going to, can be a top 10, 12 quarterback in the NFL, whatever, you line him up at the top of the draft because that's how you should draft.
Right.
If a guy's that good at the quarterback position, you should draft them unless you got Patrick Mahomes. And then in which case you're not going to be able to draft that guy. But that's how we line up our draft board. When the draft board comes out, it's only going to be Spencer Rattler at the top and no one else at 2. I don't think there's anyone else right now that I would say is that sort of guy. And the names, Sam Howell, Keaton Slovis, Sam Howell of North Carolina, Keaton Slovis of USC, JT Daniels, Georgia, Malik Willis, Liberty. There are names out there that are talented dudes. I just would not put any of them in that air yet.
Malik Willis is getting all the hype because that highlight reel is ridiculous.
Yeah, I was going to say that he's the fun to watch. He's the hashtag fun to watch guy.
I watched only his big time throws first, 20 of them last year, 19 or 20 of them, and I was sold. I think. What do you think? I've got opinions on his arm. Where do you think his arm stands?
I think it's the strongest of any of these guys, bar none. He had I
think it's Allen territory.
Yeah, I do too.
It's in Josh Allen land.
It's a monster, and he has like a 30-yard throws that just don't go higher than his helmet.
Yeah.
Because he has a little 3/4 release, and it just zips. He has really a cannon for an arm.
What do you make of Slovis or Sam Howell and these guys that have they've been pretty productive tools-wise? Are they
I think Howell is.
par?
I think Howell has a very strong arm also. He's more – size is going to be the thing with him. He Baker Mayfield-esque size. Like he's just a shade. He might be 6 foot.
Yeah.
Like 220. Not your athletic, but like Baker Mayfield, he's like athletic enough to make a little bit, but not going to rely on it. And that offense is so just absurdly simplistic.
It's Baylor plus, right? I mean, it's that, and when we describe
no one,
Baylor,
no one goes full Baylor anymore.
Yeah, the Baylor offense was, again, we always describe this. This was one of the most difficult ones to evaluate quarterbacks because there were literally no reads. It was spread it out as far as you can across the field, find one-on-one, chuck it deep.
I was gonna say it was counting numbers is what it was. It was how many numbers are on that side, how many defenders are on that side. Pick the one with fewer.
Yeah, my 4- and 5-year-old are pretty good at counting right now. They got that.
Yeah.
So
that's why Bryce Petty looks like he did there, and then like he did at the Jets.
Yeah, the Baylor tree is obnoxious to me from a player evaluation standpoint. They're tough.
Yeah.
Emory Jones, Florida.
Emory Jones is my dark horse breakout guy.
That's your guy?
He's very talented. Like physically, what he can do as a runner, what he has from an arm strength perspective. I was encouraged by how he looked against Oklahoma coming in for Trask, obviously, after the wheels came off with Trask in that game. Not putting him in any sort of first, second, third round conversation yet, but I do think the tools, and obviously he's in an offense with Dan Mullen that's probably going to set him up to look good.
They've used him as a change of pace a lot the last couple of years as far as running the ball.
He's the runner.
It'll look more like Dak's offense rather, under Mullen.
Yeah.
Where Dak, that was the tough part about Dak too. They used him on QB power and counter so much, and he actually was really comfortable just dropping back and chucking it. It was someone else. Matt Corral at Ole Miss. That's another kind of like a Baylor. It's Lane Kiffin, but stealing some of the Baylor-esque concepts. I do Mississippi radio every week, and they're ready.
All in on Corral.
They're ready. They're all in on Corral in the first round, and I was like, dude, guys, he's listed at 6'1". You know he's probably 5'11 and a half, and that's gonna ding him in the NFL. Do you have any thoughts on Corral?
See, I'm biased against Matt Corral because I love John Reese Plumlee.
Oh, okay.
He was that guy was electric. That was the best runner at the quarterback position in college football.
Yeah, he was.
And just got benched.
Keepers for like 70 yards left and right.
Because they wanted to throw the ball, whatever. But
Corral's a baller.
Corral's he's good. I wouldn't put him close to the air of like even a first rounder at this point. He's very consistent. But
describe want to talk Rattler really quick. So
Okay.
he's the clear top guy for you.
Yeah.
What's his skill set like? What are we thinking? When he was recruited, people were like, oh, this is just a hybrid between Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. Nice job over there at Oklahoma.
So, I mean, stylistically, like the way he throws the ball looks a lot like Kyler Murray, like the arm, how it whips. I think, was Seth Galina described him as the Gen Z quarterback, whatever that, like, if that elicits thoughts in your mind, it did in mine, and it's perfect. Because he kind of takes the sort of what everyone's looking for of the outside the pocket, out of structure plays. He takes that to the extreme. It's all outside of structure with him.
Yeah.
And now he's got ridiculous arm talent, very athletic, add on the run game. But he is not really playing a lot within the Oklahoma offense. It's a lot of, and they're even like scheming it up. Lincoln Riley is in that offense to kind of give him almost like late reads where it's like, this is a play that's designed to, it goes here, but then 4 seconds after the snap, it'll go here. Like your route will break off to this intentionally because we know Spencer Rattler can do this, because we know we have an offensive line that can probably do this.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I was listening to Seth and their podcast. I think last week they had Coach Voss on talking
the defense grew.
Just the nitty gritty, X's and O's and all that stuff. Really great stuff. So go check that out. But even just listening to that about how like in 7-on-7, they were saying how when you coach 7-on-7 in high school, there you have like essentially 4 seconds to run a play. So you just, your coverages are different. It's not like cover this zone. When you're teaching defense, it's like cover this zone, but also this one after 3 seconds and all this stuff.
Switch, yeah.
It's almost like the offensive version of that, but it also feels like this adjustment to all the 3-man rushes you see in college football. Just to compare to Brady again, like when you rush 3 against, say, Brady in the red zone, it's happened his whole career. He's patient. Like good quarterbacks are just patient. They're like, oh, I know 3 men are rushing. I know there's going to be a lane to step into somewhere. Whereas other quarterbacks, they're just so structurally trained. They just say, I'm just going to go through my reads. But against
within the function of timing.
Yeah, like I remember Stafford actually doing that a ton. 3-man rush, and he's just like, I'm going 1 to 2 to 3 and throwing it instead of actually saying, let me find the pass rush lane. It sounds like that's Rattler, right? I mean, you've got these 3-man rushes, and it's like, I don't need to throw the ball on time, right? I'm going to
watch me do this.
I'm going to wait. I'm going to make you cover 4 and 5 seconds and break it down. Yeah. If there's a thread between Mahomes and Josh Allen as like the breakout players, when you were describing those guys coming out of college, it was they are so comfortable outside the pocket. They're not as comfortable inside the pocket. Mahomes, because he would do this, just leave the pocket, whereas Allen just wasn't really accurate or timing-wise. Yeah. But they had instincts. They had passing feel. They had playmaking ability. Is that the X factor?
I've said this a few times, and this is not mine, this was Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks on their podcast. They talk about a shooter versus a scorer at the quarterback position. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they can score. Nothing has to go right with anyone else, and they can put points on the board. A shooter has to get almost schemed open, or like has to get the ball with the lane, has to have a guy open, has to see a guy open. And so the guys that can score are the guys that are winning more in the NFL, winning more in the NBA. You want the scorers. Not to say you can't fill up a box score as a shooter. You can, what's his face? Klay Thompson can put up 60 in a game, but it has to be because other guys are doing it around him too. You can't just drop a shooter in and ask him to continually win you games.
I like that analogy.
I do too. So I use it a lot.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, because I usually just speak in tiers, QB tiers, and I think ultimately you do get those types of guys. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing to me is if you watch Peyton, Brady, Breeze throughout their career, even though it doesn't look like Mahomes, they do actually have elements of that where it's like, hey, everything's covered. I'm still going to put it where it needs to go, or I'll buy time. It's not highlight reel plays.
Yeah, it's not always just that. A lot of it can be just throwing a guy open, like a back shoulder to a guy who's covered.
Right.
That was Aaron Rodgers over the course of his career. Like having a guy who nothing's there, but you create it because of how you play the quarterback position.